What was your simple common mistake that entirely ruined your relationship? You/cheese_whisked responded. Accommodation to avoid any conflict. At the time I was working through a lot of childhood trauma and I didn't know better, now I do. I lost my identity trying endlessly to please him so he wouldn't abandon me, but he was going to do that anyway. You can't and shouldn't have to earn love from people, and them betraying and disrespecting you is a cue to exit, not a sign to try harder. You/huge resource 5085 responded. Lack of communication, he never told me about what he thought or how he feels about our relationship. Those feelings just compounded over time until he ultimately called it quits. I wish he talked to me, we could have figured it out together. I was always in the dark and didn't even see the breakup coming. Hurts, but I think it was just meant to be. Communicate with your partner, be transparent. Helps both parties. You/Ang's correlation 756 responded. Took a nap one day, she thought I was cheating. Big blow-up argument, I found out she was cheating on me. You/Dignity replied to this comment to say, OOF. My ex always suspected me of cheating. It was profoundly hurtful. She'd question where I was or nitpick small details of stories to see if something didn't add up. The worst part is, there was no evidence. She didn't have someone in mind who I was cheating on her with, or place I went to, or a time that was unaccounted for. There is something intimately critical about having the person closest to you say they know you cheated on them, not because they have evidence, but because they just know you. Turns out the first time we hooked up, she was still with her current BF. You/JustCup5542 responded. Trying to communicate with someone who couldn't receive or recognize healthy communication, and then not ending things as soon as he turned resentful and cold towards me, but foolishly thinking that somehow we could communicate as to why he was suddenly treating me poorly. Even if you create a safe space for communication, if the other person isn't willing to do so, it's pointless. It's silly now to think that I ruined the relationship for being open and transparent. You/OKWorry2131 responded. Doing too fucking much, and getting nothing in return. I did this grown man laundry, I cooked, I cleaned, I bathed the animals, he did fuck all except cheat on me. When I asked why he didn't leave because, clearly, he didn't love me. He said I just loved having someone to come home to. Now in happily married and we just had our daughter. He still stalks me on social media, I'm sure because he had a million burner accounts and I couldn't possibly remember the names for all of them to block them. You/EasyGeoing responded. In my last relationship, I was with someone who had an addiction. Since I had tried light drugs before, the whole relationship brought me down. When I got out of that relationship and met someone new who was super nice and decent, I messed things up by telling him about my past drug use up front. He made it clear that he didn't approve of it. I told him I would stop and that I wouldn't let something silly like that ruin a good relationship. After 3 months of being together, he wanted some space to figure out how to proceed because of his stressful job, frequent travel, and recent divorce. I gave him the space, but then I slipped back into drug use myself. Long story short, I lost a great man because of drugs. You/Consideration who responded. Putting up with things but complaining about them instead of running from them, e.g. red flags. Because you want a relationship to work. Instead of realizing this person is an idiot and leaving. But safe to say that was a very long time ago and LVE moved on. If you're having to ask for human normal decency but think it's just because they're a bit blind but I'll help them see. Get out and get therapy because maybe you went through something before this. You/ThrowerARO responded. He told us we shouldn't talk to our individual friends about our relationship issues because they'll always take our side. 3 days before our breakup he talked to 2 friends about our relationship issues and yes, they took his side. Meanwhile I'd been telling my friends everything was fine with us when it wasn't, and looking back if I had spoken to friends about it I would have had the strength to break things off a lot sooner. You/upbeat_preference 423 responded. Not spending quality time together. Those were the times that I was so drained by my job that I don't even have the energy to do my skincare. All I wanted to do is to sleep after a very tiring day. I'm a sleepyhead by the way. We rarely meet each other. I feel bad every time I wasn't able to meet him. If she wants to, she will, is easier to be said than done. Until one day, he fell out of love. You/Davathapanut responded. She expected me to know why she was mad at me without communicating to me all about what was bothering her. I'm completely open to correcting reasonable things that bother a partner, but I can't do that if you don't tell me what it is. I broke up with her after she was all pissy and telling me I should know exactly why she's mad for 2 days. Eventually she relented and told me she was mad that I watched a new episode of a show we normally watch together. Which, granted, I did do. But that was the final straw in the no communication issues we had. You/Ewanlyharthamusic responded. Trying to do everything I could to make him more comfortable, to unhealthy extents. He had a short fuse, so I often ignored my own wants and needs in order to not stir the pot. This included not directly telling him when he overstepped boundaries as to not hurt his ego and risk him getting pouty. It meant not having a talk about what I wanted and needed in bed because he had expressed exasperation when what he tried wasn't working for me and I didn't want to further hurt his ego. It included walking on eggshells when he struggled with his mental health. It included doing everything his way, or trying to at the very least, which resulted in an unbalanced relationship and me feeling like I wasn't an equal, which was actually one of the reasons for the eventual breakup. U/X masochism responded. I'm going to say the unpopular thing and say that didn't make a mistake. While I can be honest enough to admit that I am not perfect and I did plenty of things wrong, I was truly the only one who actively worked on the relationship or ever seemed to care what it felt like for us. I wanted us to check in with one another, share our goals and plans, communicate. He wanted us to be like roommates. He wanted me to STFU and take care of shit at home while he took care of shit out of home. If I spoke with him about any detail that was not specifically important in his opinion, he wasn't interested in listening at all. He regularly spent as much time alone and in his room as possible. I can honestly say that I passed years of my life with someone who could not even have a regular conversation with me. After 13 years, I don't believe that man knew a single thing about me, and he actively chose to not know. Arguably, that could be a common mistake that he made that could be the answer to the question, but it's even more common than that. He kept a physical, verbal and emotional distance from me, and instead would cheat on me. It's really sad how often cheating is the answer. U/Riskel V responded. I thought following my partner around the world would give me at least some say in when we went home or where we went next. Turns out I was wrong. After turning my life upside down multiple times, stopping my career in its tracks and leaving me in a place I didn't want to be, she booked travel to her next destination without any discussion and said you can come with me if you want. I said no more, charted my own path, and that was the last time I saw her. U/Pissbloodcumshart responded. Getting married before I had embraced my true sexuality because it conflicted with the conservative values I was raised with. I was lying to myself more and therefore unintentionally lying to my partner. Oh, the other mistake was falling victim to the sink cost fallacy multiple times between the first sign of incompatibility and the most recent backing out of a divorce. Oh, and having a kid to fix things. U/Pinod1719 responded. I think it was being too afraid to talk about some issues we may or may not have just because I was afraid of the possibility of breaking up. And guess what, she broke up, lol. I became too comfortable to think. But on another hand, she could have communicated about the problems so we can solve it together, but she was too afraid of hurting me. But ended up hurting me more. But maybe it's too soon to know exactly since it was 2 weeks she ended things. U/deleted responded. Covert contracts are premeditated resentment. I was a poor communicator and he was very controlling. I'm generally avoidant and he's generally enmeshed. I didn't think to say I need a half hour to decompress alone after work so I can show up to our together time more positively since I spend 8 hours managing people. He worked alone from home just researching crypto for a bit and cleaning his downstairs. Airbnbs if needed, so when I got home he was like a puppy asking what we were going to make for dinner together, and what we were going to do for fun. I didn't think to say, I'm exhausted after work and I feel like since you work shorter hours and are home all day, you can make dinner most nights, since I also could literally just eat a girl dinner, 2 pickles and some cashews, and be fine with it. But to him, making dinner together was our quality time. Eventually our qualms would come up in fights, but we didn't really resolve much. We just grew disrespectful and resentful, and it came out in weird ways. I learned a lot from it, but there are a few scars that I've brought to other relationships. Getting better at voicing my concerns though. U/GlobalBreak311 responded. I once made the mistake of assuming my partner could read my mind. I kept my feelings bottled up, thinking they would somehow understand what I needed without me having to say it outright. Eventually, this led to misunderstandings and tension in our relationship. I learned the hard way that clear communication is essential in any relationship. U/SQWRLLY1 responded. Going along to get along. Basically, not communicating wants and needs effectively. Not taking the time to check in with each other and actually hear what the other person has to say about how they think, and, more importantly, feel on things, especially big decisions. Not everything needs to be a long, drawn-out conversation, but neither partner should feel like they're unable to share their side perspective on a matter. It only leads to assumptions, resentments, and hurt. Edited to add, patience, respect, and giving each other grace for being a flawed human that will sometimes F up are also essential to success in relationships. U/Larit Petite Mort responded. Not going to bed angry. Fighting through hours of exhaustion just to relent and go to bed, only to wake up resentful, was not healthy. Going to sleep was a sign that the conversation was over, and bringing it up the next day was just wanting to start a fight. It's so much healthier to accept the conversation isn't going anywhere and go to bed even if both parties are still upset. Wake up the next day level-headed and well-rested and pick back up on the conversation. You'll find it so much easier to communicate rather than bickering through exhaustion at 2 a.m. U/Nerdmigo responded. Don't ever think you know a person after you met and both of you were high, drunk, etc. Even highly caffeinated if you ask me, and then continue to date while high or drunk, etc. You don't know the person. It was doomed from the start. But hey, I was young and missed a lot of good experiences, simple because I followed my peers and got high or drunk while going out. Also, I missed out on good leading figures like parents or even peer groups that had healthy and happy relationships. You learn a lot from people who have healthy relationships. You/Jusumjele responded. I find myself struggling to express my true thoughts to my friend S, which has ultimately led to the deterioration of our friendship. Judd haha. It pains me to know that I am unable to effectively communicate with them, causing misunderstandings and conflicts. Despite my best efforts, I feel like there is a barrier between us that prevents me from truly opening up and being vulnerable. My inability to connect on a deeper level leaves me feeling lost and frustrated haha. Haste, all I want right now is a shoulder to lean on and a beer. You/That Kid 1992 responded. Trying to include him in my life when he clearly wanted to keep me separated from his. Knowing he was lying or omitting things, accepting abuse that he disguised as jokes and allowed his friends to do the same. Then, when some traumatic events happened to me, assuming LD never find any better. We were both unhappy, he ended up using me. His friends literally, almost, said we were here first, you need to accept our abuse because that's how we show love. I think he got a crazy one pregnant after 1 month of dating. I upgraded. You/InormadButhirmeout responded. Jealousy. I made this mistake for years. Once I had my heart broken enough times I kinda just gave up and went along with whatever in relationships. You wanna go out to lunch with some other guy? Great, have fun, bye. As soon as my attitude shifted to I don't give an ever loving and what you do, I'll drive you to your date with another guy, just leave me alone. Women basically refuse to leave me. Attention-seeking behavior from other men is no longer part of the equation because I don't care at all. I think a big part of it was just that I clearly defined that I would break up with someone if they cheated on me, end of story, and if someone is gonna behave like that, it's on them, I'm not going to play games. And so they don't try anything. They just chill and are obsessed with me all the time. You/SJG7VC responded. My ex broke up with me because he was significantly younger and wasn't ready for the level of commitment he knew I would expect in a few years. I took the breakup way too personally, so cut off all communication with him. Years later I regret not being able to see it from his perspective. Had I had more empathy for his side of it, maybe we would have stayed friends, and then who knows, maybe timing could have worked out later down the road, but oh well. Life goes on. You/SelfDevBite responded. My parents are lawyers, and his dad is a carpenter who was working in a different country, while his mom doesn't have a job. We've been together since the end of high school. I was ambitious and eager to go to university, while he didn't have an idea what he should do with his life. So, I encouraged him to go to university with me. In the first 2 years of university was so hard. We had multiple fights over the years because my grades were excellent, and I always took every exam on the first try, but he was struggling. His parents didn't support him at all. They were fighting because their expectation was that he should make money instead of studying for a better future. I was fighting with him because his grades were average, and his performance wasn't the best. Sometimes, I felt like it was all my fault because I just wanted to save him from his own parents and his own vision of the future. You/Booksandkittens 615 responded. Before I knew it was a faux pas, a guy I was seeing sent me a shirtless pic on Snapchat. I wasn't a regular and I thought he looked great and wanted to save it to enjoy looking at. It wasn't a dirty picture and I thought this would be flattering. Also had no idea he would know I took a screenshot. Well, he did. And he lost his mind over it and I never saw him again. I still maintain it was flattering and maybe he should have been a little more understanding and given me a chance to just delete it and move on. You/arrow_24244 responded. I said something that I shouldn't have. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't think I am crossing lines. Turned out I was. And now I see that all this time I was hallucinating. Imagining something that I had no right to claim. To be honest, I knew none of it can ever come true, but for a second it seemed like I might have a chance to earn that one thing which I am actually begging for. At least now I am willing to accept the truth. I was an idiot in first place for thinking that I could ever expect someone to go with such a thing. I hope he forgives me. Maybe he got it all in a wrong way. Anyway, I fucked up and going any further will only make it worse, so I have to stop and forget it all. Perhaps in future I will find another way. You/your cousin Larry responded. One of my exes. She tried telling me I was insecure and jealous because I let it upset me she slept with her ex-boyfriend. She apparently needed closure. She told me she cheated and I was insecure jealous over dinner at a restaurant, so I wouldn't make a scene. She said if I was nature and secure I would move on. She didn't make apologies for it. I politely excused myself, said I needed to use the bathroom, got in my car and drove home. She was 35 plus miles from home. I stuck her with the dinner bill and a $130 cab ride home. I guess my mistake was being insecure. She said a secure man wouldn't have a problem with their girlfriend sleeping with someone else. You/Avilsta responded. I don't know if it's applicable, but 10 days into my 19-day trip to Japan, I was both physically sick and homesick, so during train journeys and all, to get some sense of comfort I'd zone out on the train and just listen to podcasts while playing some games on my phone. Also, the drain of daily outings for the whole day for 10 days was taking its impact. My friend mistook it as me being upset about the trip, and me having a RBF doesn't help. We haven't spoken since, and had to hear from a mutual friend that he wants nothing to do with me anymore. I don't know, I used to be insanely distraught about it since it happened during the festive season, but I guess the past few weeks I finally started to make peace with it. It still hurts, but I'm finally moving on.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this one.